States a Republican form of government. You know, it's interesting because Thomas Jefferson, the great author of our Declaration of Independence, said that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And I think we ought to think about that a little bit. You know, the last few weeks since January 20th, it's like every day has been waking up to Christmas morning again. You know, you've got a Christmas tree there, but there's a new box you should open the box up. One day, the administration is defunding, take your pick, USAID, or killing DEI, or maybe Elon is sending his astronauts up to save our astronauts because the Biden administration didn't have the guts to do it. So, every day, in one sense, is like Christmas, but yet we still are reminded that we are in the battle. Just this past week, we had a tyrannical clown wearing a black robe, masquerading as a federal judge, order the President of the United States to turn around an airplane in the air that had a bunch of criminals in it who had violated America's immigration laws as if he, the judge, were the President of the United States. And he wasn't the only one. We had another judge in Washington, D.C., a Judge Raves, who tried to become the Commander-in-Chief and signed an order to block the Commander-in-Chief's instruction that we would no longer perform transgender surgeries or recruit transgenders in the military. Let me tell you something. I'm a Navy guy. How many veterans we got? Fellow vets, please stand up, and so I can see, if you would please. God bless you all. Here from you guys. We have a bond that will never be broken. I am personally aware of a paratrooper unit in Western Europe that was put on alert after October 7th. Ready to go possibly into the Middle East, depending on what happened. The first orders were to drop into the Golan Heights, just in case Hezbollah came along. Those orders changed. Thank goodness they've not had to go. Just a few weeks after that, the Biden administration dropped a dude wearing pantyhose and high heels in the middle of that combat unit. That is the type of assault they have brought against our United States military. I've had the privilege, by the grace of God, to work with our great Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. Let's hear from Pete Hegseth. When I was a Navy JAG officer out in San Diego, I got involved. Unfortunately, we had an F-14 go down, one of our fighter jets, before we modernized and went down. And I was a JAG officer assigned to that case and became familiar somewhat with military aviation disasters. And a few years later, when I was off active duty, I was watching a press conference from Washington, D.C., the National Press Club. There were a bunch of parents who were there with some prominent members of Congress, conservatives, Allen West, Louis Gohmert, remember those guys? Some prominent flag officers like the late, great Ace Lyons, General Jerry Borkin, who's a friend of mine, and they lost their sons in a helicopter in Afghanistan, extortion 17. They'd been shot down. And I opened up a relationship with the family, wound up writing the book on the shoot down, and later was turned into a movie. You can watch it on Salem, called Fallen Angel. But I tell you one thing, I learned from having led the investigation of that shoot down that this deep state is absolutely capable of anything, including taking the lives of our own service members. From there, that's exactly right. It is beyond corruption. You talk about the fourth. She's right. There's an illusion there are three branches of government, but if DOGE has shown us one thing, it has shown us this: that the deep state of the United States government is a criminal racketeering enterprise, and it must be brought down. It must be brought down, and we have to wage war against it. We've got to wage war against it and take it down. There can be no compromise, and I can tell you something. As much as I love what our great president is doing, and I would go to war for that guy, he's pardoned two of my clients, including one Jay Sixer and another young man named Lieutenant Clint Lawrence, who was in Afghanistan, prosecuted for murder under the Obama administration. Pete Hegseth and I worked very closely together for a year and a half to get the president's pardon. I would have gone to war for Donald Trump and still will, but I'll tell you this. Let me tell you this. You said, Michelle, 2 years, maybe 4 years. But our Congress, our Republican Congress has been weak. Our Republican senators have been weak. Understand that the constitutional scheme is Article 1 is the Congress of the United States, not even the President of the United States. They've been weak. Look at this $37 trillion national debt that we have. And if you want to talk about a ticking time bomb, the national debt will take us down. It is important to understand this. Every great nation on the history of the earth has had a great currency. You know, when I was in the Navy out during the last years of the Reagan administration, you mentioned Reagan, I love the guy, I was at the guy's inauguration. It was a period of what we call glasnost, or perestroika. And we had some, Gorbachev was about to fall. They were going bankrupt because they had overspent on their military. And we had joint exercises with the Soviet fleet one weekend. We had to put our whites on to go down to see the Soviet sailors. Sailors came on these ships. Their ships were inferior to our ships. They may have been a military superpower, but economically they were weak. Their uniforms were dingy and dirty. They learned English really fast. And they learned this phrase, $5. Because you see, they found out that we gave $5, they give us their medals. Okay? And a few years later, I was in Belarus, same thing, trying to get a kid out of there. I can speak a little Russian in the redneck accent if you want to hear it. But same thing. Put out a $20 bill because I saw this Russian chess set. Those people were going crazy for that $20 bill. That is the power of the United States dollar because we have the international currency of trade. But we are on the verge of going bankrupt as a nation with a $37 trillion national debt. This is the ticking time bomb that nobody wants to talk about. We're angry about DEI, and we should be angry about DEI. We should be. But we've got to wage war against this deep state to save the dollar. Because if we don't save the dollar, we're going to lose it. Finally, I've got the 3-minute mark. It is time to repeal the Internal Revenue Code, to repeal the IRS, to go to a fair tax, and to rely on only tariffs for our source of income. They have created a criminal state. If you let the United States Senate, by God, I'm going to take this forward, I'm going to take this fight to the war, to the floor of the Senate, and I will not let you down. I love you all. I got to go. I'll be around for any questions. Thank you, and God bless you. Yes, ma'am. Define who is behind the deep state. The deep state is controlled by the forces of globalism. Okay, when we have these suckers make laws that for every 10 laws that's made, 9 are made by deep state bureaucrats and not by members of the Congress. And so it's a self-perpetuating cancer. If you don't eradicate the cancer, it will metastasize. The Department of Education was passed during the Carter administration right before Reagan came in. Yes, the president can defund it, and we can defang it, and we can have 4 years of a golden age, but Congress must take it out. Congress must end the Department of Education and end the Internal Revenue Service. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, besides George Soros, who is behind, who represents the deep state?
BlackRock.
The deep state is represented by rhino politicians,
Yes.
by establishment politicians, by members of the Congress who have no guts, who are not willing to take it out, who care more about the status quo. You know, yesterday was the 250th anniversary of Patrick Henry's great speech, "Give me liberty or give me death." We must recommit to that. All of us here in Wake County, all of us in the United States, we're going to lose, and they are, communists know how to play the long game. The Chi-Coms play the long game. English-speaking communists play the long game. The deep state is globalist. It is globalist, it is billionaire banks, it is billionaire investors, it is billionaire financiers who dangle us around like puppets. Looks like I'm getting pretty close. I will be around. God bless you all, and thank you. Well, I've got all kinds of questions. Yes, sir.